You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
This is Gorilla Publishing's Julio Guerra, and you're listening to Comics with My Kids podcast.
How do you do, buckaroos, and welcome to Comics with My Kids podcast, the official podcast for the comicscornerbox.blogspot.com. I'm your host, Matt D, and with me today is...
Logan D.
Today we are talking about Transformers, written by Daniel Warren Johnson, art is by Daniel Warren Johnson, and colors are by Mike Spicer. This is the relaunch of the Transformers comic book series. Fair warning, parents, it's a little graphic. It might be for kids between the ages of, I would say, 10 to 20s, more or less.
10 plus.
Yeah, 10 plus. Definitely not something geared towards younger kids.
Definitely not. Especially the
but
first
if you grew up a fan of the Transformers cartoon from back in the 80s, this is definitely a great segue into that comic series. Kick back, relax, and we'll dive right into Transformers issue number 1. All right, Logan, can you give us the synopsis for issue 1? We're going to get a little spoilery with this. So, people, fair warning, go and read the issues if you don't want to get spoiled, or kick back, relax, and enjoy the show and listen to what we have to say about Transformers 1 through 5 by Skybound, published by Image Comics. All right, Logan, kick us off. Issue 1, what's our synopsis?
Issue 1, it starts off, there's two humans, one's name is Spike and the other is Carly, and they go off exploring and they fall into this weird spaceship thing that has the Autobots in it, but all the robots are powered off, it looks like.
You're right.
But one.
And it's not just the Autobots, though. There's also the Decepticons. But they don't know who they are, do they? The humans. All right, so after they fall into the thing, what happens? When they fall into the giant spaceship, which is known as Teletran 1, what happens after that?
They see that there's still one robot awake.
Do they see it, or do they wake them up?
There's already one awake.
And who is the one that's awake?
I don't know his name.
Okay, well, let me tell you, he was awake because he was actually off planet on another place, and he finds Teletran 1 here on planet Earth. And that Transformer's name is Jetfire, and he actually is a Decepticon. But he had left the planet before the Autobot-Decepticon war, so he didn't realize that there was a war going on between the two. And the first thing he sees is his old pal Starscream. So what he does is he fires up Teletran 1, and Starscream gets woken up. And that's where Jetfire learns about...
the war.
Right.
And so the first thing that happens is Starscream zaps Bumblebee in the face and kills him.
Right. Which is interesting because Bumblebee was actually one of the first Autobots woken up in the original series back in the 80s. That's the 1980s, not the 1880s. So anyway, so Starscream blasts Bumblebee, but then what happens? What does Jetfire say?
Jetfire tries to stop him from attacking. He says it's madness, and so Starscream zaps him.
Yep.
With his fire-throwing laser. Why does it look like a flamethrower?
Well, yeah, it's just that's the way that Daniel Warren Johnson drew this. And I got to say, I really like Daniel Warren Johnson's artwork. I've been following him for a while now. He's got some really nice thick lines, some serious detail, and I love how he uses sound effects in his artwork. Like when Starscream is fighting Optimus Prime later on, you can see this huge boom in the background, all drawn.
That's
really
at the
big.
beginning.
Yeah, later on,
No, like right after he blasts right after Starscream blasts Jetfire.
Yes.
Then Optimus Prime gets up because a lever got flipped when they were fighting.
What lever?
There was a lever that powered on the machine.
Oh, Teletran 1? Right.
Yeah. And so it woke up Optimus.
Gotcha. All right, so then what else do we see? Oh, what does Optimus Prime see?
Optimus Prime sees that Bumblebee is dead and he sees his enemy up, so they fight. And then Optimus Prime sees the humans and wonders what they are. He started to talk to them, then got attacked.
Okay.
And so he continues to fight up against him. Pardon me, Starscream.
Gotcha.
And then another guy gets up.
The other guy, I believe, is
Trying to see where they say his name.
It's not Wheeljack. He's the medic, though. He's an ambulance. I can't think of his name. Let me look that up real quick. Transformers ambulance name. Ratchet. The guy's name is Ratchet. He's awoken, and he gets up, and it's kind of key to have him awake because he's going to be the guy that helps reassemble the other Autobots so that Optimus Prime has a bunch of buddies to help fight the Decepticons.
Wait, don't close it yet.
Okay.
What I think is really cool is when you looked up Ratchet, see how there's that red variant there?
Yeah.
Well, in the book, he's completely white.
Right.
But in the next book, you meet someone called Cliffjumper, and he actually looks a lot like that.
Yeah, he does. Cliffjumper is actually a repaint of the classic Bumblebee. So I think it's funny that Daniel Warren Johnson chose Cliffjumper as opposed to Bumblebee to help with the series.
That's what they did Cliffjumper as.
Yep, and he looks a lot like Bumblebee, just a different.
He's way shorter than the others.
Yeah, well, so was Bumblebee. Bumblebee was a short little Volkswagen Beetle. All right, so that was issue 1. What then happens into issue 2?
In issue 2, it starts off. Optimus Prime starts to exploring the world. He's admiring the beauty.
Wait. Did we tell what happened to all of them after they were fighting in Teletran 1?
Oh no. So what had happened is, now that Ratchet was woken up, he loaded all of the others into the trailer.
Right, all the other Autobots are loaded up
Yes.
into Optimus Prime's
Because they're not powered up yet.
Right, okay.
And so Optimus turned into his truck and got them out of there. But before he did, he found out that Bumblebee was dead.
Right. And didn't he also grab the humans too? Spike and Carly?
Yes.
All right.
And Carly and Spike actually helped him.
Yep.
Because at some point he was about to die, but they pushed his gun to him.
Gotcha. And that's a big gun, isn't it?
It's a huge gun.
Yeah. So they then they escape from Teletran 1, and they find a hiding spot near this like old mining facility, and then that's kind of where the issue ends. Then it starts off.
Well, they're in this big like canyon.
Yeah,
thing.
that's a mining facility. It's where they mine for like ore.
And it doesn't end yet. What happens is Starscream and the other two he woke up. Actually, Starscream leaves the two that he woke up, and he goes to this power plant. Finds 2 humans there, Davy and someone else. Davy and Sparky.
Yeah.
And
Sparky is Spike's dad.
And Davy is Carly's dad.
Yeah. And then what happens to poor Davy?
Then Davy gets squished.
Yeah. So then that ends issue 1. Issue 2 then opens up, and Optimus Prime that's where we come into with Optimus Prime exploring the wilderness.
Yep. And then as he's walking, he steps on something and it crunches, and he looks down and he stepped on a deer.
Yeah. So he realizes that this world of humans on planet Earth, they're fragile. Like everything's fragile here. So he realizes that he has to be careful around people and animals and stuff.
And then Spike comes over and talks to him, and we learn his backstory. And we learn that he's from Cybertron. And then Spike finds out about the war.
Yeah.
And then that's when Cliffjumper gets introduced. And then what's really funny is, as soon as Cliffjumper sees Spike, he gets terrified. He's like, and so he turns around and starts to walk away. And then behind him, Carly said, "Oh, please." And he spun around, and he was afraid of her as well.
Right.
How many are there? And so after he calmed down, they became friends, and the car started upgrading her car. Because she's got this like van that she's been painting things onto.
Oh yeah, her van looks pretty sweet too. because she's got an awesome paint job. Because she wants to be an artist, and is it that she's trying to save up to go to college to be an artist?
I think so.
Okay. All right, and then what's neat is, okay, so now that we've seen the Autobots, we kind of segue over back to the Decepticons, and there's a little intro in here. We see a jet flying through the sky, but it's not it's not a Decepticon. It's actually a jet of the U.S.
humans.
Yeah, it's the U.S.
Although here's what's really funny. He sees them and he said,
Who's he?
The one blue guy.
Soundwave?
Soundwave, yes.
Okay.
Soundwave sees them and he says that he's picking up or he doesn't see them. He figures out that they're communicating and realizes that they're fighting back. And what's funny is Starscream says the squishies trying to fight.
Yeah.
Because he calls them squishies because he squishes them.
Yep. But what do we learn about this particular jet fighter? What do we know about this new U.S. Air Force guy coming in?
We first know that one's named Frosting, and we don't see and so they start fighting him.
Mm-hmm.
And so they eject.
Not inject. Eject.
And then the one, when she gets launched out, he says hi to her and then claps her with both hands.
Oh, okay.
And so now Frosting's dead, and the other one gets mad and activates some kind of jetpack thing.
Right.
And shoots and flies at Starscream, starts shooting at him.
Right. Now, do you know who that other guy is?
Duke.
Yeah. So they've introduced the G.I. Joe into the Transformers, because this is part of their Energon universe. So Skybound's got G.I. Joe, they've got Transformers, and they're releasing G.I. Joe issues by each character. So after you read this issue 2, you can go and pick up Duke issues 1 through 5, and it kind of picks up the storyline of Duke after he sees his friend die from a Decepticon, and everything that falls out from that. All right, so after Duke escapes, the Autobots are kind of in hiding. The Decepticons are kind of terrorizing people. What happens next?
Optimus Prime spots the fire off in a distance from the power plant, and so he goes after that. And then,
what do you think of this one panel, though, where we see Optimus Prime starting to transform?
I think it's actually quite cool how they did that.
Yeah, he drew. So like in the cartoon, you would see them transform, and it would be like a very, and you'd see them transform, and it was really neat. So Daniel Warren Johnson was able to draw Optimus Prime like mid transformation, so you actually see his like arms coming in to become his chassis, and you see his legs folding up to be the rear wheels. I think it's a really cool art panel there. All right, so now we're into issue 3.
Yes, and I don't remember issue 3.
Okay, so issue 3 starts off. Carly winds up going back home, I want to say.
So it's in the end of issue 2. She gets home and she learns that her dad's dead.
Right, but who's waiting at home with her?
Spike's dad.
Yeah, Sparky, and he was a former soldier in the U.S. Army, and he has some of his stuff still. So he's sitting there with his army helmet on, a flak vest, and then he's got a gun because he knows
2 guns.
Yeah, because he's seen these robots that kill people, so he knows that he needs to defend his home and save Carly from these robots. And Buzzbeak shows up, which is one of Soundwave's.
I actually did not get to see a full picture.
What's that?
I want to see what a full thing of Buzzbeak looks like, because all I get to see is looks like a tail thing. Is it like a scorpion or something?
No, he's a
vulture.
That's Buzzbeak right there.
Oh.
So Buzzbeak shows up, and he's that bird-looking thing that came out of Soundwave's cassette player.
Oh.
But I've been too much, so yeah.
That's who that is.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell us a little bit after Buzzbeak shows up.
Well, one thing, I'm a little diverting, but I used to have this one toy. It was the bad guy. I did not know at the time.
Yeah,
and I could open his cassette, and the bird would come out.
Yeah. You gotta remember, buddy, that was mine. I gave it to you when you were a kid.
And then Cliffjumper shows up and defeats Birdbeak, and then gets shot by Sparky, because Sparky doesn't know who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. And so then they get in the cop car and leave.
And then what happens?
And then we flip over to what's it called? Yeah, but I'm trying to think of where they are.
They're in Teletran 1. They're still in the giant spaceship that's buried under the mountain.
Yep.
So they're there, and Logan decided to stop telling the story and kind of read.
Because I don't remember.
We see Soundwave and Starscream talking about waking up the rest of the crew and how they also need energy, because one of the things that the Transformers are lacking is a thing called Energon. Energon is their energy that they use in order for them to like move around and become robots. So they discovered that they have raw energy here, but they need to convert it into Energon so that they can use that for their ability to take over this planet and get back to Cybertron to continue the war. So after these two argue about who to wake up and how to get energy, what then happens, Logan?
Then we flip back over to Sparky, and he comes into this building. They go into this building where there's a bunch of other people. It's like a bar.
Yeah, he goes to his local bar because he's a bit of an alcoholic, because he's seen some serious stuff during his time in his tour of duty, probably like Afghanistan or Iraq or something, and so he drinks a lot of his problems away. So he goes to this bar where there's a bunch of other former veterans,
and they're all ready,
and they're all set to like fight back against these robots. And then what is it? Cliffjumper shows up. So then what happens after that?
He says he thinks that they got off the wrong foot, and as soon as he comes in, Sparky shoots him.
Right. But then after Cliffjumper shows up, I believe it's Buzzbeak that shows up?
No. Buzzbeak does not show up.
Okay. Who does?
I actually don't know. I think...
Is it the other jet?
Yes, the other jet.
Yeah, so it's not Jetfire, but there's another jet that's like Starscream, but he's all purple. I can't remember his name. Hold on a second, I'll look it up. Why don't you go ahead and tell a little bit about what's going on while I look up that Transformer's name.
And so then he comes in and starts attacking the people that are shooting at him.
Right.
Because now they stopped shooting at Cliffjumper.
Skywarp.
Yeah, and they found out that he's a good guy, and then so they try and fight back against Skywarp, and then Skywarp's about to kill Cliffjumper, but Carly tries to stop him, but he laughs at her and he's about to zap her, and Optimus Prime comes in to save her.
Now, before you move that from that page, buddy, how cool is that page right there? That's a double page splash that Daniel Warren Johnson drew of Skywarp and Optimus Prime. And can you describe to our listeners what is happening?
You can see the Optimus Prime in his truck form comes smashing in. The entire thing of Skywarp is bent over, and behind him is a big B, O, and O. Well, half an O.
Right.
Because it's so big.
Right. And again, that's because Daniel Warren Johnson likes to put a lot of his sound effects in his art, which is really cool. And then, of course, we get another like half transformation scene or panel of Optimus Prime turning into his robot form, which really looks really cool.
And what else I thought was cool is you can even see the words.
Yep.
Oh, I'm not sure what that's supposed to say.
Basically. Okay. All right. So then, so Optimus Prime is now fighting Skywarp, and didn't he bring Spike with him?
Yes.
All right. So Spike's also there. He's helping out. And then what happens?
I'm not too sure what Optimus Prime does, but his hand starts glowing, and then it turns into an axe.
Yep, because he has this like extra superpower where he can take his energy and create this like axe-looking or a sword-looking
weapon.
device, which I thought was neat because when I had an Optimus Prime back when I was a kid, I lost the hands. So I always thought it was kind of neat that, oh, hey, later on in the cartoon, one of his hands turns into an axe. I'm like, well, I don't have any more hands in my action figure, so I'll just pretend they're both double axes. So anyway, Optimus Prime uses his axe.
No, he doesn't use the axe. He gets Skywarp down and uses it more as a threat.
Okay.
But then, someone shoots a rocket at Optimus Prime, and it hits him in the hand.
Oh, okay.
And then Skywarp got up and destroyed his arm, the arm that turns into a axe.
Gotcha.
And the military guys don't really know who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, so they attack both.
Gotcha. But then what happens? Does somebody get in the way?
Spike does.
Yeah, and what happens to Spike?
He gets shot.
Yeah. So then the Decepticons, they kind of fly off and go away, and then Optimus Prime realizes what happens, and then what does he do?
He says, Spike, no! And so then that's when that's when Sparky realizes who the good guy is, and he goes because someone just shot his son. And so he calls a ceasefire, and Optimus continues to fight.
What do you mean he continues to fight?
He grabs his wounded arm and his other arm. He rips his right arm off because it's now broken.
Right.
And it takes up a double page when he rips it off.
And then he uses his arm to basically knock out Skywarp.
Yeah, like a whip.
Yeah, and then they all retreat to get to a hospital, right?
Well, first, what he does when he sees Spike down the way he is, it reminds him of the deer.
Right.
And so, this is when Sparky learns who the good guy is. And so Sparky gets into Optimus Prime, and they go to the hospital.
Gotcha. Which then leads us to issue 4. And I was going to ask you, Logan, do we still want to keep going with all 5 issues, or should we stop here and kind of leave it for the audience to read 4 and 5? So, folks, I apologize. We're only covering issues 1 through 3. We're going to leave it on this cliffhanger. So, let's go ahead, Logan, and let's talk about the art of the Transformers. I know we briefly mentioned it a little bit with the double-page ads and stuff. What did you think of DWJ's art for the Transformers?
I thought it was really cool because in other comic books, like, we'll take the Hulk, for example. If he was to punch something really hard, it would say a big boom. But in this one, when Optimus Prime hit Skywarp, the words were on fire.
Right. What about the Autobots themselves, or the way that the robots are drawn? What do you think of them?
I thought it was really cool. Very detailed.
Yep.
And what I really liked is at the end of one thing I didn't really like is end of issue 3. If you look at what Optimus turns into, even though he's completely missing an arm, he just looks like he was beat up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like what? He shouldn't be able to fully form without an arm.
Yeah.
What part does his arm even turn into?
I think the arm turns into like the back side of.
Yeah, because the horns are on his arm.
Yeah. So
he should be missing a horn.
Exhaust, so you can definitely see that the back end is kind of beat up. With issue 3.
Yeah, but there should be like no back end. At least half the back end.
Right. So anything? Yeah. See, there's like that's where his arm would be, is on this last bit here. So that's all beat up. So it's definitely missing like that back quarter panel. So, but yeah, I really think it's neat the way that Daniel Warren Johnson draws. What about the people? What do you think about how the people are drawn?
The people?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's cool how he makes them seem so small.
Right.
And what else I thought was cool was at the end of this book was an ad for Cobra Commander.
Right, because again, they're part of the whole Energon universe. So they're going to continue with G.I. Joe and Cobra Commander and Transformers. So, So anything else you want to include with like, what did you think of that preview for Cobra Commander?
I thought it was quite gruesome.
Again, folks, the G.I. Joe and the Transformers are definitely for like preteen to teenagers. Definitely, it's for much older kids. So, but I'll leave it to the parents to read the issues first before letting like an 8-year-old read them.
Definitely.
So, I need you to talk into the microphone.
Definitely.
All right. Well, I can't think of anything else to talk about for this series. I think it's really cool. So, what is there any last things you want to do before we rate this book?
No. Oh, wait. One last thing is, if you take any of the comic books and flip them over, they will all have the 2 symbols. The symbol for the Autobots and the other one. Decepticons. And each issue is a different color.
Awesome. I didn't realize that. That's cool. All right, Logan. So how would you rate this book? Buy, borrow, or bust?
Buy.
Yeah? And why would you buy it?
Because the art style's cool, and the storyline is very intriguing.
Nice. Well, I too am in a buy. I'm a big fan of Daniel Warren Johnson. I think his art is phenomenal. Now, I don't know if you folks can find the back issues for issues 1 through 5, but I do know that I think in next month they'll be releasing the trade paperback, and you should be able to pick that up at your
Isn't this trade paperback?
Trade paperback is a collected edition, so it'll collect issues 1 through 6. So if you go and
6
check
came
out
out?
Logan,
What? Did 6 come out?
not yet. That's why next month it should be the collected edition. What was I saying? Oh yes. So yeah, you should be able to pick up the collected edition next month in that'll be April, and it collects all 6 issues of the run so far. And I would definitely say it's a buy. Go out, get it, read it, enjoy it.
And look at the back.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, thanks for listening to this episode of Comics My Kids podcast. Check out more episodes at comicscornerbox.blogspot.com.
Leave us a rating or review at Apple Podcast or Podchaser.
Follow us on Twitter for all our episode posts and news at Comics with Kids.
Also check out our Facebook page, Comics with My Kids, and Instagram.
Thanks, and have a great night.
Why did you say that if it's not even night when we're recording?